Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia in Fury. It's a joy to be with you all once again. And speaking of a joy, right here, right now, Randomania is running wild, brother. That's right. Here, I get to interview a guy that I had on my initial list that I wrote of people that I wanted to have the opportunity to talk to. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the one, this is the only, this is the incomparable Mr. Randy Hogan. How are you, sir?
Oh, wonderful, brother. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, doing great, my friend.
And most of you people are supposed to be in bed sleeping. I'm having my morning cup of coffee.
That's how it is here in Australia. I have to be up very late to interview a lot of people. One time I had to be up at 2 a.m. to interview Mr. Don Morocco because he's in Hawaii and the time difference is quite crazy. But Randy, great to have you on the show. What have you been up to lately?
It's my pleasure. Well, there's not a whole lot going on over here right now. Conventions are just starting up for the year, and that's pretty much what I do now is conventions. My in-ring days are long gone. You know, once in a while I'll maybe play a little managerial role or just go up and do an interview in the ring. But other than that, it's just I got merchandise similar to your shirt, except mine is HWO, the Hogan's World Order. But yeah, just pretty much conventions over here. And I keep trying all the time to get to one somewhere across the pond, but it doesn't seem to be working. You know, I tried Ireland and England and Australia, but in time, hopefully I get to meet everybody over there too.
That would be really cool, Randy. And I guess, the question that I usually start the show off with is, and I'm sure you've had this one before, and I've really tried to painstakingly write questions that maybe you haven't had before, but this one's a typical one. Before you got in the business, how did you become a fan of professional wrestling?
My grandparents. I was probably, maybe 7 or 8 years old. I was raised in Detroit, Michigan. Here, and they were hardcore fans back then, right on the edge of their seat. It was real. Don't tell them that something's not real, okay? So I was raised again in the old days watching guys like Dick the Bruiser, the original Sheik, Killer Kowalski, Wilbur Snyder. I was fortunate enough as a kid and still remember seeing Gorgeous George, the original one, used to throw gold hairpins out to the audience and stuff. I got to see Pat O'Connor, Lou Thez, so the Fabulous Kangaroos, okay, with I think Roy Hefferman and Al Costello.
That's it, yeah.
So that's kind of what I was raised on it. Now my parents, they didn't want nothing to do with wrestling. Wrestling, that fake crap, they were that. But my grandparents, so. I don't know what day it was, but whenever wrestling was on, my grandparents lived right across the street from us. So I'd go over and we'd watch wrestling and everything, and they'd get all upset, howling at the TV and stuff. So that's the environment that I was raised in as far as professional wrestling, and I remained a fan right up to this very day.
So, that's amazing. It's like there's these cherished memories that you had back then. It's like at the same time, there's a bug that bites you, and that bug doesn't go away. What was it that made you decide at some point in your life to get into the business, and how did you go about it?
Well, I was in the restaurant business. I managed a couple of restaurants down in Florida here. Again, always a big wrestling fan. Anytime it was in town, which was, I think, Wednesday afternoons, they did some TV taping in Columbus, Georgia, which I lived in. So kayfabe was alive and well back then, okay? Now, I really wasn't sure what was real and what wasn't real. So I wanted to know. Now, prior to this, I played in a band, and we played hotels around, Holiday Inns. We played a Holiday Inn in Columbus, Georgia, where the wrestlers stayed when they did their tapings. So here I'm up on stage playing, and I see these heroes of mine walking in at the time. Wahoo McDaniel was there. The Continental Lover, Eddie Mansfield, was there, who I got to be good friends with. And in town, there was a tag team called Ted and Jerry Oates. Now, they traveled all over the world, were pretty big, mainly regional. And they had a little wrestling school. Jerry Oates owned a gym, and in the back room where the women did aerobics, that was a training room. And all they had is mats. So initially, I didn't train in a ring. I trained on the mats, which was the best thing in the world for me. Oh, anyways, so I called Eddie Mansfield. And I said, Eddie, do you know anybody down here that trains? I want to get into wrestling. He says, well, the only people that train down there are Hiro Matsuda, who trained Lex Luger and Hulk Hogan, a couple others. He said, well, why don't you call Jerry? I said, okay, so I called Jerry Oates at the gym. Jerry, do you know anybody down here? And he says, well, no. He said, but, I train. I says, well, yeah. So we talked back and forth, and I was getting more and more excited. So I said, okay. So they had closed the restaurant I was managing. So I packed everything I had up in my car, drove from South Florida up to Columbus, Georgia. That's how I started training, learning to fall. Again, today it's more gymnastics. You got guys doing flippy flops all over the place. Back then, there was more of an emphasis on mat wrestling. Okay, and they call it catch can, and they call it chain wrestling and all that. But you learn to wrestle. So it was a big advantage because, first of all, you learn how to fall correctly because you got just a little bitty mat, like a gym mat, and that's it. So if you fell wrong, that gym mat on that cement, that hurt. So you learn real quick to do stuff the right way. So that's the way I was brought up, from the way you lock up right into getting into stuff. Now, we probably took our first few lessons and we trained 3 times a week, and no time limit. Usually it was an hour to 2 hours. But the first couple of days, we did nothing but lock up. You can tell in a lot of cases how a guy is trained just by watching how they lock up and what they do in it. Your normal fan or person doesn't realize that. But from there, we learned how to snatch a headlock. Knocking the arm down, pulling it in, keeping your face up toward the crowd or toward the cameras all the time. Don't look down. So that's simple little things like that. So that's how I was trained and brought up until I finally had my first match, and that was a whole other story. So get your questions out of the way, and then I'll get some more of mine if you want.
Excellent, Randy. No, the thing a lot of people out there don't realize is that there are so many little intricacies and laws to even the smallest things that you do in the ring. And someone that has watched a lot of wrestling and is trained in wrestling, like I did a while ago, when I see someone not doing it correctly, I immediately get annoyed about it. Because I think these are very important things, and you shouldn't rush through things like a headlock or a hammerlock or a headlock takedown, etc. So you're completely on the ball with that. And what would you say, like, as far as not just wrestling, but in life as well? What would you say that you learned the most from Jerry and Kansas Rowdy Ted Oates?
Oh wow, what I learned the most non-wrestling was stay humble. That carries over into wrestling too. Some guys will get a pair of bicycle shorts at Kmart or something, and they'll get some sneakers, and they'll pay some guy $2,500 who's never had a real match in his life, okay, to train him, and all of a sudden they think they're wrestlers. So they go back. Now these kids weigh 150, 160 pounds. You notice nowadays how many of these indie wrestlers and that, they all have shirts on. They don't have a body to show. They have shirts on to cover up what they don't have, rather than going back. Okay. Again, lessons learned, no matter what it is, learn the basics. I was in the restaurant business. Okay. Came up in that management, owned 6 restaurants, sold them anyways. But you learn from being a dishwasher up to a busboy. You don't go right in and manage a restaurant knowing nothing. It's no different. Okay. You learn to lock up. You learn a headlock. You learn a hammerlock. Then you learn takedowns, all the while learning how to fall, because that's a really biggie. How to fall and how to sell. But again, stay humble. I don't care how big you get. Some wrestlers like Mick Foley, Terry Funk, they have always top of the game, but always stayed humble, friendly, appreciative of the fans. In the locker room, they never pushing everybody around or pushing their clout, which they had. They were just nice, humble, normal people. Wrestling is just, some guys just do it for free. Some guys do it for weekends, for a little part-time income once in a while. Some guys do it full-time, not necessarily TV, because you can do indie full-time, but you got to travel. You don't make no money, because I'll work for this little promotion and then I'll have to drive 4 hours to make $50 way up here just for the experience in that. Okay. So you drive 4 hours, you spend your gas, you spend some money on some food or something, and you ended up $10 in the hole, but you love it. Okay. And yeah, I'm a superstar. I'm a pro wrestler now. So I got to laugh at these kids, but just never let your head get big. And that's the difference a lot of times in working steady or working one off. If you go in and you are just non-appreciative and everything else in the locker room, that promoter is never going to ask you back. Now said, I didn't realize that you had a little bit of training. Okay. But one thing, again, other than psychology, which they don't teach anymore. Okay. After a match, no matter how good, how bad, how much you get beat up or whatever else, you thank your opponent back in the locker room. Thanks for the match, whatever. Sometimes just say, is everything okay? And sometimes thanks, and that's it, and you move on. You never, ever complain. I got my brains beat out quite a bit. Okay. That was my thing, pretty much, as far as TV goes. What comes to mind is Vader and Abdullah the Butcher were probably the toughest guy, beat me. The best advice I ever got was from Abdullah the Butcher. Again, I went back in the locker room after the match, shook his hand. Now, this guy, he had killed me. He had beat me with a kendo stick. He stood all 400 pounds. Sometimes if someone's going to stand on you, the next to the ropes, they kind of take the weight off. Not him. He was standing 1 foot on my chest, one here, and I couldn't breathe. So finally he got off, and then that big old guy did the same thing again. Couldn't breathe again. So that's when he had Gary Hart was his manager, and he threw me out of the ring. Gary Hart took a shot at me. Abdullah had a kendo stick, and he just whipped me like a dog. And we were outside the ring, between the ring and the fans, right by the barrier. And God, he was really hurting me. But I went, didn't say a word. Back in the locker room, shook his hand. Thanks for the match. He was sitting there with his feet up on a desk, smoking a cigar. Now, Abdullah the Butcher in real life is very well spoken, very educated, well spoken. Okay, you wouldn't know it. So he's sitting there smoking a cigar, and he said, I thanked him for the match. He said, it was my pleasure. Very nice. And he said, how are you? You okay? So that opened the door a little bit. I said, yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. I said, but you beat me to death with that kendo stick. The best advice he ever gave me was smoking a cigar. He says, son, it's good for the business. Now, that's old school. Okay. Now, where today, they don't hit you with a chair in the head. Everything is across the back because of the concussion thing.
Yeah.
Well, back then, man, you just got hit where you got hit, And if you're that close, I mean, now we're right up against the rail. So we're like 3 feet away from the fans. So if I kind of pull a punch or hit somebody or get hit like a little sissy on the back or something else, the fans are going to see it. And that just gives them fuel to say, oh, you see, that was fake. He didn't really hit him. So old school is, if you're that close to a fan, you don't want them to say that. So whack. So the third, I was taping TV. That was the first hour. They taped 3 hours at a time. The third hour, I wrestled Hacksaw Butch Reed at the time. And he had me up in a bear hug. Well, the next week it was on TV, and I flew down to Florida and was watching the matches on TV with my parents. And when Butch Reed got me up in the bear hug, you could see the welt marks across my back from Abdullah's stick 2 hours earlier. So that's the difference, I think, today and tomorrow. You know, how they miss a punch or they do. How does everybody do super kicks or melee kicks, some kind of kick? Everybody, guy or female, kicks. And any wrestling fans, all the ones listening to this, the next time you watch TV and you see wrestling, count the number of wrestling holds. Okay? Not a punch, not a kick, not a flippy floppy, pure wrestling. How many wrestling holds? You might see 2 or 3. That's all. Because now it's punch, 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 which nobody sells.
Yeah.
You know, this way, you know, if you're in the street and you're in a fight and somebody hits you in the face, what are you going to do? Ouch. They hit the head bob. They hit the head bob. You know, they never act, they never sell. They don't sell the punches. That's another art that I think we learned on the job most of how to sell. And I was so fortunate. People laugh at me because they only know me as enhancement or as a jobber or as a star maker or a carpenter or whatever you wanted to call us, okay? But you really learn how to work, okay? That's another word. Being in the wrestling and actually learning how to work is a different thing, okay? People think different things of work. Basically, to me, it was you're getting the crowd invested. You're working. You're not going through the motions. You're not play acting or nothing. You're working it. It's my job to get you invested in the match, even if you think it's fake. Whoa, maybe it's not fake. Whoa, he really hit him. You know, that's working. That's doing our job. Where jobber comes from. That pisses me off too sometimes. Not so much being called a jobber, but the people like me that are offended. First of all, we had titles all over in independent stuff, okay? We were lucky enough to get on TV every week too, which we got our brains beat out. But in a lot of cases, we can work much better than the guys we were wrestling. If it was just down to a wrestling match, and I'm talking about guys like Luger, okay, couldn't work his way out of a paper bag, but you know, he had the $1 million body. So I got up in his in the rack, as he called it, you know, the backbreaker, and that was about it. But you have a daytime job, right?
Yes.
You go to work every day.
Not every day, but because my work is pretty much it's a full-time.
You got a job.
Yes.
Doesn't that make you a jobber?
Yep.
You go, you do what you're told, okay? You perform your job to the best of your abilities. Hopefully you get paid at the end of it, okay? So if anybody works a job, they're a jobber. Enhancement, of course, it was our job to enhance the guy we're working. If I was wrestling, and again, back in the day, a Brad Armstrong, okay? Or somebody like a Ricky Steamboat that were really wrestlers, you enhanced them. You made them look even better of a wrestler by taking cheap shots as a heel. If I'm in the wrestling, somebody like, if I wrestle like when I wrestle Sting, same thing. You know, and you sell what these guys give you, you know. You don't no-sell anything to one of these old school guys because you will sell, but it'll be for real.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, I've seen the match with Sting. November 28, 1988 in Macon, Georgia. You shoved him to start the match. He flexes, and immediately your whole expression changed. You pouted the outside in fear. It really made me smile. The way you sold the Stinger splash, it was like you were done. Your facial expression. you went down, you immediately started tapping out to that Scorpion Deathlock. Like that was art right there. What you did made him look tremendous, and he was only 3 years.
And what did I do? I enhanced him. I enhanced him in his stinger splash and everything else. A part of that match, I think he was outside the ring on the apron. I think I pulled his neck over the ropes, whatever, and he didn't sell it, And then I scooted out of the ring. I said, "Whoa, shit!" and I'm gone. Again, just a little comedy to it. A little whoa, he's scared. But and if I'm in there with somebody like Vader, that was my worst match, hardest match I ever had. Got hurt more than anything. But he did everything he did was for real. I mean, and again, there's one on YouTube, one of my matches with him where he's punching me in the corner, okay? And he's really punching me. So I'm sliding down the ropes in the corner trying to get away, and now he's punching me up. Yeah. So, and then he did that splash, monkey splash off the second rope, whatever it is, and went for the pin, and then he pulled me up, and he did it a second one, and I think maybe a second or a third one.
He did a third one, but he actually got to the top rope and did like a jumping 180 splash onto you. And I was like, oh, God.
So at the end of the match, a couple of the referees came in to help me out. That was legit. That was a shoot. They thought I was legit hurt. That wasn't planned for them to come in and help me out of the ring. I wasn't, They got in and I said, I'm okay. I mean, I was squished a bit,
Yeah.
I'm getting pancake. But again, what I did is I enhanced him. I made him look like more of a monster than TV really was portraying him to be. That was my job,
Yeah.
So we went through enhancement, went through jobber, star maker, explains itself. We were there to help make the stars. And carpenters, we helped build them. We built them up from the ground up, So
absolutely, I agree.
And a lot of people, all these, I'm proud to be called any one of those. I don't care. You know what? Because I was there. I was actually in the ring. I was on TV, and you were either watching me or you paid a ticket to see the card I was on, So make fun of me all you want. Do you think I'm embarrassed by getting beat up by Vader or the Road Warriors, or the Legion of Doom, whatever? No, not a bit. When I get a match with like Brad Armstrong, and I can actually do some mat wrestling, things like that. Sting, who actually let me push him. You don't touch these guys unless they tell you to. So, anyways, that's the whole bunch on that. So
yeah,
call me whatever you want. I'm just proud to have been there.
Yes, it's interesting because I've interviewed a bunch of guys. Barry Horowitz hates the term jobber. He prefers.
Yes, he does. Barry's a friend of mine.
Dwayne Gill loves it. Dwayne's like, man, I'm a jobber and I'm proud to say it. It's interesting, but I always felt that enhancement talent are just as important as the top guys because there wouldn't be top guys without the enhancement.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to mention names, but since you do, Barry Horowitz, he's a good friend of mine. He lives in Tampa and I'm in Orlando, so we're only about an hour and a half away from each other. We see each other at conventions and stuff, and there's another local wrestler here that did a lot of jobs and was touted by Anderson and Jerry Lawler as having the best punch in the business. Bob Cook is
Bob Cook, of course.
The Cooker, yes, absolutely. He lives by me too. We kind of live in a triangle. Bob's a different individual. But anyway, yes, Barry hates jobber. I'm a pro wrestler. Well, yeah, you are, Barry. Big deal. What'd you do? You went on, you got your brains beat out. Now, Barry was technically, he was a great wrestler. He could wrestle. He had some regional things, Down here in Florida, he had like a Florida title, and J.J. Dillon was his manager. He was wrestling as Jack Hart, I think, at the time. But anyways, yeah, Barry and I go back and forth all the time and get under his skin. He's just a jobber.
I have to say, Barry is hilarious. A lot of people might not be aware of Barry Horowitz. I laughed so much when I interviewed him, just like I've been
Now Barry loves Barry now. Okay, Barry loves Barry Horowitz, just like Lex Luger loved Lex Luger, and we laugh about that too.
One thing, I want to play a little bit of a game with you, Randy, because you've been talking about some of these things that have taken place. Abdullah, Vader going off the top rope. I want to mention these 7 things that I've seen take place, and I wanted to ask you which of these you felt was the scariest to be taking at the time, the moment it's happening. So number 1, Vader coming off the top rope onto you 3 times. Abdullah hitting that big running elbow on you, I think twice. Brian Knobbs being flung at you with sheer velocity into the turnbuckle. A screaming Butch Reed with a flying clothesline off the top rope. Dr. Death Steve Williams press slamming you throat first onto the top rope. A Commandos sandwich from Ray Candy and Grizzly Boone. Or just watching the Road Warriors charge to the ring at you to begin a match. What would you say of those? Might be the scariest.
Well, the top 2 scary. First of all, the scariest part is before you even get to the ring, because you know what the finish is going to be. That's the scariest part. I would say when they were happening, actually the scariest ones were Vader, of course, everything he did. Because the difference in Vader and all these other guys, Vader didn't care. Vader didn't care if he hurt you. He just didn't care. Part of that was, he came from Japan, which is a different style of wrestling. Came over here, which is a lot stiffer than that. So, but anyways, that was the worst thing about Vader was he didn't care. If you're any hurt quite a bit of people. And a lot of people really were hurt by him. So when I know that I'm going to wrestle Vader, people in the locker room are laughing at me because I got Vader, because they know it's going to be a stiff match. So that was the scariest one. I think close to that, there was a tie between Dr. Death. Okay. I don't know how to say this, rest in peace. Not so much wrestling him or what he was going to do, but what condition he was going to be in when he got in the match. I'll leave it at that. Okay. So him and Vader was the toughest. And I think him, along with the whole match, the first time against the Steiners. The Steiners, just like the Nasty Boys, were known for taking liberties with the little young guys, So those were kind of the scariest ones. Okay, move wise, the scariest thing as it was happening, because a lot of things you can kind of, if you're going to hit the turnbuckle, you can get your hand up or something. When you see Vader coming off that rope, and you're laying down there, and you're looking up, and you see this 400-pound guy that don't care about you at all coming down ready to pancake you, you say, oh shit, you want to scoot out of the ring while he's in the air, but you can't do that, of course. But yeah, absolutely, that was it. That was the number one right there. Steiners were stiff, okay, but they cared, Dr. Death, like I said, depending on what mood he was in, because of what condition he was in coming into the match, was kind of frightful sometimes.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
That does. It was fun for me to hear you talk about all that. But when I saw Jerry Saggs fling Brian Knobbs at you in the corner, I was like, "Wow, that's a lot of meat hitting you right there." But I wanted to bring this over because look, I don't want to keep going on about Hulk Hogan through this interview, because in all the interviews, you always.
Let me tell you, brother. You go through whatever you want to go through. Let me tell you, brother, it doesn't matter. I'll tell you everything, the truth, the 1, the 2, the 3, the Jimmy Hart connection. I got it all, brother. So you just go.
Okay, Brian. There are conflicting reports online about the name Randy Hogan. And Randy, if you want to elaborate, you may, but I'm reading one thing and then I hear another. Your first name is actually Randy. So everyone out there, it's not a rip on Randy Savage. Correct. Jim Cornette, I think he might have got a little mixed up on something he said on his show. He claims that you were given the name in 1988 when working for Jim Crockett Promotions, but I believe you were given the name in 1981. I just wanted to clear this up once and for all about
I will
this.
I will make a long story short.
Okay.
I told you all I wanted to do when I started wrestling was know what's real and what's fake. That's all I wanted to know, the truth, okay? So I went to a match in Columbus, as I always did. Wednesday night, one of the guys I trained with was putting the ring up. And so I said, Bill, what are you doing? He says, he said, they rent the ring from me when they come to town. He said, you do wrestling? And I said, no. Now, this is about almost 6 months later after training, and I had one match of trainees, and I thought I knew everything. Again, that's the key. I thought I knew everything. So he said, you wrestling? I said, no, not at all. I said, I don't care to. I says, are you? He says, yeah, I'm wrestling up in Athens, Georgia, which was about a 3-hour drive. Little hick town, okay? They might have had 100 cows and 200 people in the whole town. So he said, why don't you come and watch me sometime? I said, man, I'd love to. Now, I'm single at the time, okay? So I had nothing holding me up. He said, bring your stuff. I said, no, I don't want. I just want to come up and watch you. So I went up once, and then I went the next week. It was kind of fun. There was like 20 sailors sitting at the bar, drinking down their pints, as you say. And it wasn't like a real thing. Hot dog and a handshake type thing. That's exactly what it was. So he taught me a third or fourth time I went up. I took my bag, took my stuff. And you should always take your bag when you go to a match, okay? It's like a doctor. You never know what you're going to be up against. Always have your basics. So somebody didn't show up. So the promoter guy went to my friend Bill and said, hey, does your buddy want to work? And he says, well, I'm sure he does. He only brought his stuff. He says, okay, tell him to get dressed. So I come in, and promoter says, thanks for sitting in. Didn't talk money or nothing. Says, you're going to wrestle a guy called the Animal. And this is not the Road Warrior Animal. You're going to wrestle a guy, the Animal, and he's going over. Now, I think I know it all, okay? So I go back in the locker room. I says, Bill, I'm wrestling this Animal dude, and he's going over. Does that mean he's going over the top rope? I'm going over the top rope. He says, no, dummy. He said, that means he's going to win. Oh, okay. That's thinking you know it all, okay? And down to the basics right there, what I really knew. And this was after 13 months of training. There you go. So, anyways, so the promoter, of course, I lost, but by a screw finish. So he says, can you come back next week? I said, sure. And he said, he says, you look a bit like that Hulk Hogan. Hogan was just on his way to the Hulkamania getting started and stuff. And he said, we're going to call you Hal Hogan. So I said, okay. So I thought about it. And by the end of the match, I said, I don't mind if you want to call me Hogan, but can I go by Randy? Because they're going to call me Hal. I'm not going to know who the hell they're talking to, So can we do Randy? That's how Randy Hogan was born. From a little promoter, shot in the beer, no pay, no nothing. Okay. Now, again, just to elaborate on this part, fast forward to the Monday Night Wars. Okay. Just before that. Now, if you notice, and I'll take Barry Darsow. Okay. Demolition, Repo Man, a dozen different things. Okay. Always changing his name. Jobbers on TV, always changing their name. It might be Randy Jones. It might be a Hiccup Abdullah or something, whatever else. They're always changing the names. They never changed Randy Hogan. From the Independents to Jim Crockett to Ted Turner's boys, always Randy Hogan. I found out later part of it was as these wars were starting out and Hogan was just the icon of the world right now. They wanted to show what they think of Hogan. And we're going to show them. So they're going to kill this Hogan. Drop Abdullah on me. Yeah, that's what we do to the Hogans. That's what we do. That's why Hogan always got a job, never changed his name. But Randy Hogan was on TV at least once or twice every Saturday going through. So that's that's why it stayed, why it started. Go ahead. I've got all these answers to questions in my mind.
No
you know,
problem, man.
Have you ever met Hulk Hogan? No, I have never to this day, face to face, met Hulk Hogan.
Right.
What would you do if he did? Do you think he's mad at you? Whatever. I did a convention last year, and I was right across the aisle from Jimmy Hart, who is Hulk's best friend in real life. They have other business ventures, other than when he was wrestling. And oh, by the way, he just had another operation on his back, Hogan, and he has completely numb now from the bottom waist down.
Yeah.
He can barely walk, and he's going to have those, I call them polio canes, that wrap around the fort. That's how he's, and I'm just about there the rest of my life too. Anyways, so I had to get a picture with Jimmy Hart, but I was scared. But I went across, it was a lull, it was slow, so I walked across there. I says, Jimmy, excuse me, can I get a picture with you? Now, if you ever know Jimmy Hart or talk to him, he is like a hamster on crack, okay? He is, yeah, sure, brother, come on. He's on. So, again, I thanked him, almost like a man. I thanked him for the picture, And I was and I told him, I said, I was a little bit nervous because I know you and Hulk are, good friends. And here I'm doing this gimmick, and I wondered, what anybody thought of it, At that point, if he said, don't do the gimmick no more, I would have stopped. But he said, no, brother. He said, we love it. He said, not that you're the topic of conversation. He said, but we're well aware of you, and your name has come up, and, you've never done anything to tarnish the Hogan name. When he went NWO to turn heel, the indie circuit, I turned heel. I kind of followed his lead a little bit. T-shirts like you got, which I have, for sale at Randy Hogan stuff on Facebook. Anyways, it's got the H, and my signature on the bottom. So Jimmy said, no, he said, you never have. He said, we love the gimmick. He said, I love the outfit, because I have the same outfit he does. I've got a lot of the red and yellow, the Randomania T-shirts, rather than Hulkamania, okay? And I've got them in red, black, royal blue, and yellow. So everything he wore, I pretty much had, right down to the spandex, when at the end when he did almost like the Billy Graham tie-dye type things.
Yeah.
So he said, no, he said, we're okay. He said, you just keep going, brother. He said, I love the good, love the look, love the gimmick. So, wow, that was like passing it on to me, So I felt so comfortable, where now when I run into Hogan, and I'm planning on it right now, I won't be scared. I'll be nervous as hell and everything, okay? But I'll go, he owns a restaurant down here called Hogan's Hideout, I think it is, where Hogan's Hangout. Anyways, they have karaoke on Monday nights and stuff, and he's there all the time, regularly. His son Nick does the DJing and stuff. It's like a family thing. And of course, Jimmy's there Brian Knobs is there all the time. So I talked a couple of weeks ago to Mario Mancini, who is pretty good friends with him. He said, I'll introduce you to him. He says, when he comes to town, he says, you let me know. Well, he's always in town when Mario gets to town, because he's up there in New Jersey or wherever it's at, and I'm down here in Florida. But so I got the okay from Hulk through Jimmy Hart that what you see, brother, is what you get, and it's okay. But never once have I said, I'm his brother, I'm his cousin. I never said I was related. Never, ever said I was related. Another thing, a lot of people ask about this guy named Scott Colton.
I just had an argument with someone about this.
Never happened.
I just told him. I told this guy it wasn't.
I do not know him. I do not know where it started. it came from some website. I heard, I don't know, it was Ring Cage or something. One of these.
Cagematch.net. Yeah.
Maybe that's it. They are the ones that did it, and Wikipedia picked it up, and then all the little things picked it up, and it go. And I get asked that all the time. I never met him. I watched his match on YouTube, and I see a similar resemblance. When we wrestled, we were about the same size. We went about 225, 230. You know, he had the same hair, except it was shorter than mine. He had no mustache, and they all say, "Oh yeah, they made him shave his mustache off, and then he grew it back all of a sudden." You know. So, anyways, no, I do not know Scott Colton. God bless him. He probably gets as many laughs out of it as I do, wherever he is. Okay, that's all I got to answer that I don't know.
Excellent, Randy. And anyone out there, if you know who Scott Colton is, the legit Scott Colton that did enhancement work for the WWF in the 90s, pass my information to him. You know, leave a comment, please, or here on YouTube. Let's get to the bottom of this. Randy, again, to talk about Hulk, this is like a question as, you know, somebody that did the work that you did in your wrestling career. Would you have loved to have the opportunity to take that big leg at some point in your career? Randy Hogan versus Hulk Hogan may have been the match we never knew we wanted, but needed.
Yes, but I would have rather dropped the leg on Hulk Hogan. I did the same finish. That was one of the finishes, okay? What an honor that would be, you know. And again, talking to Mario Mancini, we talking about it. Gilbert is kind of in our little circle too.
Right, cool.
Mancini says, I do not know for the life of me why they didn't bring you up, and do something with Gilbert.
Yeah.
Who of Goldberg, you know, and me. Managed at the time by maybe the referee, Charles Robinson. He did a thing as Little Nate.
That's right.
He did. Remember, he had a sequin robe and worked with Flair in that.
Yeah.
But just put a lot of these clones or whatever together, you know, in either a match or some kind of thing. What comedy that would be. And Gilbert, like me, are well trained, so we could actually wrestle a match in there, you know. And we know, and neither one of us is afraid to sell. So, but they just couldn't understand why they brought in the Gilbert, but they wouldn't bring in the Hogan. So,
excellent stuff, Randy. So in my research, obviously, I've seen that you work with guys like Larry Zbyszko, big men like Barbarian and Warlord, crazy men like Abdullah, green talent on their way up. That need to look good, technical wrestlers, brawlers. A man in your position had to blend in with all of these styles and do good at it. What qualities was it that you had that made you good at working with everyone of all styles, shapes, and sizes?
Training, brother. Take your vitamins. Really, proper training. That way, you learn to swim in any pond. Okay, you can do this. You can do that, and you make it look good because you know what you're doing. You're not afraid. Now there's those off the wall things. Somebody will botch something, or they'll miss a spot, or somebody will forget a spot, whatever. Okay, but you got to make it look good. You can't let the fans know that you missed a spot. So training is 99% of it before you get in the ring. You got to know what you're doing. There's no on-the-job training when you're in front of 30,000 people in an arena, or you're on national TV in front of millions, and you don't want to make a Dr. Death or Abdul or somebody. You don't want to make them mad at you. The last thing you want to do, because you'll never make it to the locker room. Even assistants. So yeah, that's the biggest thing is knowing how to wrestle, knowing how to sell, knowing when to sell, when to make it look good and when to make it look bad. If somebody goes to give you a drop kick and they're a foot from you, whatever, don't fall. Don't sell it. If you miss, move your hand like you're swatting them away or something, you know. But anyways, does that answer your question?
No, that does. And it drives me crazy when I see someone miss by a mile and the guy still tries to sell it. Yes. Because it's in their match plan. They can't go past their match plan. They can't pivot. They can't work on the fly and figure things out. That does my head in. Another question
the match plan we had was You have 3 minutes. Hogan's taking the fall with whatever the finish is, That's all you knew.
I'd love to see some of these guys that are quite prominent these days be told, go out there for 15 minutes, no match plan, improvise, listen to the crowd, see how you go.
And think of Flair and Steamboat when they had 60-minute matches. 60 minutes. Can you imagine?
Another question I had was, are there any other enhancement talent type performers that you really like the work of?
I don't quite understand.
Another guy that kind of played that enhancement talent role over the years. There's some people that you were like, he's really good at what he does in that role.
Oh yeah, God, there's so many. Guy that I was on the road with was the epitome, I think, of jobber was George South. WW, another Gary Royal, Mike Justice, they all, the Italian Stallion, they come to mind for the NWA in that. Up in the WWE or F, you've got, of course, we've spoken of them, Barry Horowitz, Reno Riggins, Mario Mancini. Can't think of any more. Now today's enhancement, which is not an enhancement of yesteryear, okay? Guys like Dolph Ziggler. I am such a Dolph Ziggler fan. He is great, and somebody asked him, well, why don't you go to another association or something? You're not going anywhere here. He said, because I'm making almost $1 million a year. Why would I switch? Why would I change? You've got a woman, I think, who left, Sonya Deville, when she was in, she's, I think, AEW now. She started.
You might be thinking of Ruby Riott, maybe Ruby Soho. I think she was in team with Sonya Deville.
Yes. I'm sorry. They were in the same cohesion. But, well, that's another one. Sonya Deville, she's getting jobbed out every week now. Yeah. She challenges Flair, she challenges this, and she always loses. But Ruby Riott, yeah, she made that move, and she's gone nowhere. She should have stayed where she was at. So
I agree. Everyone made a big deal out of her joining, and now she's stuck in, the middle of nowhere over there. But
then you got people like CM Punk and like Sasha Banks, who are, they're so tight they squeak. They got the first nickel they ever made. So they can say, screw it, and they can just walk away.
Yeah.
Because they've saved their money. Where you got some other guys that I won't mention. Well, people like Flair, okay? Flair's made billions of dollars, and yet he's got nothing. Yeah. He's got next to nothing. That's why he's doing this stuff. Not only because he loves what he's doing, but he needs the money. And so many of them are like that. Or they die broke,
Yeah.
The junkyard dog.
Another thing that I wanted to bring up here, Randy, because I've been going, with my research, I went online and I'll just see some different fans and their comments on you. And I found some really nice.
Go ahead. I got all day, brother. I got nowhere to go today. The sun's shining. It's 82 degrees. I'm going to get tan, bronzed, and beautiful on the pool today. And after that, I might go out and play 9 holes of golf because I live on a golf course too. That's what I'm doing, brother. So you just take all day you want.
Excellent, Randy. A guy by the name of Burr5030 said, I just met Randy Hogan at Superstar Fan Fest 2022. I showed up late after the signing and he was just sitting in the audience watching the show. I told him much respect and he was super nice. He's a great dude. Another guy, Jason Cutshaw 8401. Randy Hogan is the Hogan that the world really needs. Watching him is like being in a Twilight Zone because he's the good one and Hulk is the evil one.
And he was always in the Twilight Zone by the time he left the ring. Yep.
Jonathan Chiller 3954 said, love Randy. This guy put so many big names over back in the day. He's truly a gem in wrestling and it's better because of him. I thought that was fantastic.
Thank you so much. I got to say, again, I'm going way back when I first started. Told you my grandparents got me started. Of course, they passed away before I even did it. But the first time, there you go. The first time I stepped in a ring, just stepped in the ring. I had tears in my eyes. I just couldn't believe it. I was just so thrilled. And I hear things like this from fans, whether they were fans or not, that, hey, we appreciate what you did in the business, or, I used to watch you with my grandpa, whatever else. Again, it just brings tears in my eyes. I'm so appreciative of all these people,
I'm glad, Randy. This is why I wanted to bring that up, because sometimes, if you're not looking online, because some people don't like to look online, because some people are very narrow-minded and say very mean things about anybody.
That's okay. Say it. But I'm a jobber.
When I find the nice comments, I thought to myself, I want to share a few of these with Randy, because I thought it might be
Thank
nice
you.
for you to hear.
Thank you all. Good or bad, doesn't matter. Can me, pay me, brother.
We haven't got too many questions left here, Randy. One question I have for you, though. What was your most surreal moment in the wrestling business?
That first time I stepped in the ring. That was it. That brought back my childhood. It brought back my grandparents. I could see them both right there,
Right.
Still do.
Yeah, big flashback and such. That's really cool.
That was a defining moment. And that was, wow, I was 30 and I'm going to be 72 in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, so 42 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday.
Well, you're still looking good, brother.
Only I felt it good.
When was it that you decided to step away from the wrestling business for good? I tried looking online for a definitive, your final. This was Randy Hogan's final match, but I'm not sure because the internet just is useless sometimes. When did you decide to step away? And did you know your last match would be the last one at the time?
I don't remember when yes, I do. I was, I don't know, maybe 47 years old, something like that, doing independent stuff. I wrestled a match in Savannah, Georgia against Rick Steiner. Rick Steiner used to do a lot of those belly to back suplexes.
The Germans and all that, yeah.
Yeah, I had wrestled him a few times before and always landed on my head. So I'm wrestling him. It's on TV. He goes behind me. I said, okay, I'm going to turn a little bit and try to catch the fall on the weight of my shoulders, Well, I turned too much, cracked my clavicle. So that pretty much put me out of it, I was out for about 9 months with that surgery and stuff. So that at that point, and I was getting older, I said, well, I'm just going to go part-time. So I just did some independent stuff. I booked a couple of little independent shows where I lived in the town. I had a restaurant there. And of course I would finance it. And they started doing TV tapings down in Florida. They used to do it at TBS Studios when Crockett had it, and then when Turner took it over. Then they moved it down to I don't know what they called it at the time, MGM Studios or Hollywood or something. They started doing it down here. So I made some calls. So now when they taped down here, I would get on TV once in a while, just trying to keep, because the name of my restaurant was Randy Hogan's Cedar River Seafood. So I had to keep the Randy Hogan thing alive. So I turned myself into Ronald McDonald. Little kids would come in, I had little 5x7 pictures of me. I'd autograph it, give it to them, and tell them a little bit about what this guy's like and what this guy's like. And it was so much fun. So that's kind of weaned me off of working, sometimes 3, 4, 5 nights. Sometimes I remember there was a couple of weeks I had 8 matches in a week, because you do, two matches at TV taping usually. So I went from there, I went down to working just 3 times a week, just doing the independent circuit around Florida. And then finally I just said, I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to legit hurt myself. I tried to stay in shape. I went to the gym and did all the things you're supposed to do. But age catches up with you. I don't care what you do. It catches you. I didn't want to jeopardize my real life shoot job, as they call it, just to make a couple of bucks, getting dropped on my head by some kid who just got out of the backyard training. So that part I kind of weaned off it. I did nothing for almost 10 years until I got a call from a vendor, Kevin Nash, Damage 365 or something. Out of the clear blue. Hey, you want to do a convention? I said, what? I didn't even know they had conventions. So he explained to me, yeah, we'll fly you in, we'll get you a room, we'll feed you, we'll pay you X amount of dollars. I said, man, sign me up. So now, if you remember my wrestling career, I didn't wear the red and yellow nothing. I had black velvet robe, turquoise interior, turquoise trunks, turquoise boots. That was my thing. But everybody's always kept up on you, Hulk's cousin, Hulk's brother, whatever, all my whole life. So he said, hey, can you do the Hulk Hogan thing? And I said, well, sure. I didn't know if I could, but it's like in show business, somebody says, hey, can you tap dance? Yes. Then you go out and tap dance, okay? My good friend happens to own a printing shop. So I said, can you do something like this for me? Just with the red and yellow t-shirts. And that was it. So I still had a few weeks ahead of me for the convention. I says, what else did he wear that I can wear? Well, let me buy these, these sunglasses. You can get them for $1 a pair, So let me get those and I can autograph the lens, which I do. And then I bought a couple of dozen of the bandanas, to sell. And it went on and on. I bought these little dumbbells, little 2-pound dumbbells like girls use, and I autographed that because him doing this hanging and banging,
Yeah.
So I brought everything in like that. I've got 13 different pictures that I sell. Never one done in a studio. The closest I got was I've got one in the WCW frame.
Yeah.
So anyways, so I said, so he made me shirts. I bought a couple of these and bought some of this. And then I ended up buying the yellow wristbands and everything else. So I just gradually got into the Hogan gimmick because a vendor wanted me to about 3 years ago.
Right.
But I sat there for 20 years doing absolutely nothing. And I get a call and I don't even know what it is. So then I got a call from another vendor. And then at the convention, you see vendors and they come up, And some of them don't want nothing to do with you. It's not like I'm a hot commodity, but I love it. And it gives me time to be with these fans. Like when I met at the Superstar Fan Fest. Oh, that's a fun one too. I never miss that every year. But you actually get a chance to sit and to talk to fans. Not now, some of the guys, I hate to see them because autograph go. They're busy, but they don't take time. Man, I'm doing this one in that one in Rome, Georgia. I got little kids coming up to me. Now, you don't want to give stuff away because you're trying to sell all this merchandise. That's the only way you make money. I got these little kids, 6, 7 years old, maybe younger. Going, can you sign my arm? So they'll have a magic marker. God, how can you charge a kid or say no? I probably signed more arms, and then their friends come up and everything. So I'm signing on the back of their T-shirts. I'm signing in their arms. I'm signing across their chest. Then the mama wants maybe a signature around across the top of her chest. So you end up doing it. But man, that's what it's all about with the fans. That is what it's all about. And some of these big name guys that just don't care. They're watching the clock all the time. But, they're bringing them in. And some of the guys are making, you bring somebody like The Undertaker in, they're getting paid $25,000 a day, guaranteed. Where you got some guys who are just in there at a 50-50 split or mid-range guys, like me. But, man, that guy really brought it home right there because that's probably my favorite convention because you're so up close and you're never rushed.
That's cool. Very cool to hear, Randy. And one other thing I wanted to ask you about, we're getting very close to the end here.
No!
If there's, please plug anything that you've got going on. Please tell me about the Cedar Creek Seafood Restaurant. Tell me everything that's going on in the world of Randy Hogan.
Well, I have no restaurants. I sold my last restaurant. I retired when I hit 62. Social Security, and I had a couple bucks put away. So that was my retirement. I got married that same year, and my wife manages a dental practice. So she was off work at the time too, and we did a little traveling and just had fun. You're in Florida, you gotta have fun. You know, you guys paid thousands of dollars to come down and visit and have fun. I live it every day. So, anyways, she got a good offer for a job, so she took it. So she come home after a couple of weeks and say, "Honey, this just isn't working for me." And I said, "Well, leave, quit." She said, "No, no, no, I love my job." She says, "But I'm out working, bringing home money every week, and you're laying by the pool or playing golf every day. Something ain't right." I said, "Okay." So then I started a little catering business. I live in a golf course community. So I started catering all the events here and everything because I still have my licenses and stuff. So so I started with one restaurant. I was married at the time, another marriage. Um, Bought a second restaurant, got divorced, lost the first restaurant. So from the second and then through my career, anyways, I ended up with 6 restaurants. So that's how I got in the restaurant business, and that's how I kept the Randy Hogan alive by keeping my hair bleached. Because my hair was about color of yours, dark brown, almost black. So I'd had a light cream bleach, man, on my eyebrows, my mustache, my hair. Couldn't breathe, my eyes were watering. So I had to keep that up, and I kept the pictures up, and that's why I kept doing the TV once in a while when WCW would come down to MGM Studios and that. So that answers that.
Very cool, Randy. It's time for us to get to our final segment of the show where we get to find out about your favorite things. The first 3 are about wrestling, the rest are about some other different things. Randy, who is your favorite professional wrestler of all time?
It was a tie between the original Sheik and Dick the Bruiser.
Excellent
Now,
choices.
these are names that young guys probably never, ever heard of.
I've seen the Sheik. I've heard of Dick the Bruiser. I haven't seen a lot, but I know the Sheik. He's a wild one.
Dick the Bruiser was a big, barrel-chested, ex-pro football player, like a lot of them are. And he was smoking a cigar, big mean. He was big in the AWA here out in Minnesota and that, and did some promoting later on and stuff. Him and the Crusher were a big tag team out at the time, And they were fighting with the Wilbur Snyders and Killer Kowalski, and they would come in. But those are my favorite, probably because they're childhood memories.
Yeah.
The ones now, nobody really excites me. I mean, as far as, oh, good, he's going to be on. I can see it. Now, my wife's different. Of course, she loves Drew McIntyre. But she likes Becky Lynch because Becky does probably the best promos of any of the women. She's up there. She's got that accent and that just little bad girl attitude. So she loves her. Of the current people, the ones that I appreciate the most, okay, nowadays is Dolph Ziggler. He's just a workhorse. He does whatever he's told to do, whether it be win, whether it be lose. They give him push here and there, but he always puts in 110%. Of course, Hulk Hogan. I liked his, not so much the wrestling part, but the personality, the stuff that brought you to it, the promos. And I appreciate a lot of them from his era, older, because they didn't write out promos. You might get a couple of bullet points, but man, that little red light goes on, you're talking, you're on it. So nowadays it's all so scripted, especially the women. Oh, I hate Bianca Belair when she tries to talk. You can tell every word she's saying is scripted. I bet she's got an earplug in her. She can work. She's strong as an ox. I appreciate what she. That's kind of Charlotte Flair, a knockoff of her old band. Absolutely. She draws heat without drawing heat, without trying. She just comes out there in her flashy robe, puts her arms out like this, spins around, just like Nature Boy. Woo!
Very good choices there, Randy. Over the course of your career, is there anyone that you would say was your favorite opponent?
My favorite opponent. Well, of the big name, the TV guys, I would probably say Sting or Barry Windham. Barry Windham is another guy, just had no mic skills. He got as far as he could go, and they kept giving him little pushes, little angles, but he couldn't do it. Wonderful in the ring, though.
Excellent.
On the independent circuit in Florida, and I went around and around Florida with him. His name was Buddy Valentine. Looks just like Greg Valentine, a little bit bigger, knew how to work, got the heat and everything. And him and I, we would, if you get like Drew McIntyre against Sheamus, man, these guys are laying it into each other because they're best friends. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll get you later, whatever else. Me and Buddy Valentine were that way. So he'd get me down in a face like he'd be punching me, hit me. I said, ease up. He's up. I'm going to tater you, boy. I'm going to tater you. So, yeah. So Buddy Valentine and Barry Windham.
Excellent choices. Do you have a favorite match? One match that you look back on as that's my favorite that you performed in?
You mean that I had or that I have seen?
That you've had.
I guess Buddy Valentine. Those were my classics. Those were TV quality matches with him. Yeah, I would say my matches with Buddy were the best quality matches. Matches that I have seen it always comes in my mind, and they did a series of them, but it was Flair against Rick Steamboat.
Of course.
It was technical. It was everything. It was just a total match, man. You want to learn something, watch one of their matches. You're going to learn everything.
Absolutely. Anyone out there hasn't seen Steamboat versus Flair, check out the Chi-Town Rumble. That's just one of them.
There you go.
Okay, we're getting away from wrestling now. Favorite book?
Actually, I just finished it. It's probably one of my favorites I remember. It's called Good Lovin'. It's a biography of the Young Rascals.
Okay.
You know, and Good Lovin', that was one of their hit songs and everything.
Right, cool.
The Rascals or the Young Rascals, I don't know. But very interesting. It was written by the guitar player who they have writers, you know, he dictates it, and then a guy named Steven wrote the book. Well, friend of mine, do you know Michael Monty and the Pharaoh?
Oh, yeah.
They're a big thing over here. Anyway, so Monty got hold of him and got me an autograph book.
Oh,
anyways, cool. I read it, and then having spent time in the music business, you know, which is how I got in the wrestling business or the restaurant business. It was just so real, you know. It's like one of these wrestlers, George South. I don't know what it's called. He wrote a book on wrestling, covering the jobbers, an enhancement thing, and he had a lot more matches with a lot more of the big guys than I did. Like I said, he was the ultimate. But yeah, my favorite is definitely called Good Lovin'.
Excellent. Do you have a favorite TV show, Randy?
They switch all the time because just as I get into them, it's gone for the season. Now I'm waiting for a show called Yellowstone to come back.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Yellowstone. There was a detective show. Bosch was another one that's off. Bosch. So I like these that have 6, 7, 8, 9 episodes. That I can look forward to coming on. Right now, everything Yellowstone started back this past week here, so I'll follow that all the time. The best soap opera I have watched. How old are you now?
I'm 35.
Oh my goodness! For 44 years, I have watched General Hospital. 44 years to this very day, I watch it 2:00 every afternoon. So yeah. Favorite shows. That's it.
That's great to hear. That's great.
And of course, wrestling.
Of course. Can't forget about wrestling. Do you have a favorite film, Randy?
Again, you and I flop back to all the time the original Rocky.
Of course.
#1. So motivational, you know. And you think of a guy who came from nothing, below nothing, a little bit of a street thug, whatever. And then he finally gets a chance. He gets an opportunity, which flipping back to wrestling, if they just give some of the enhancement guys an opportunity, how far could they go? One of my least favorites, of course, was Rocky 3. Was Thunder Lips. Hulk Hogan was in, yeah. But I like most of the wrestlers' movies, and maybe just because they were wrestlers, I don't know. You got The Miz was in the Marine, and you got Roadhouse, and Terry Funk, and they had done a lot of them. But Rocky, that's my motivation. That's probably, I don't like to see any movie more than once. My wife goes crazy because she wants to go to the theater and see something 2 or 3 times. No, I saw it. I know what's going to happen. Move on.
Yeah.
Rocky is the only movie, it comes on, and it's every 3 months it's on TV. I watch it, but it's got to be the first one. Adrian, that's the one.
Excellent, Randy. Do you have a favorite band, Randy?
I have 3.
Okay.
Being a musician, I really do appreciate all kinds of music. Okay, but my favorites that I click on the radio if I can on Pandora is Chicago,
Excellent.
Tower of Power, and Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Fantastic.
Those 3. I'm just a horn group type guy. Classic rock. I like AC/DC, the jazz, Johnny Coltrane. So I've got
cool.
Old school stuff was Sinatra, that whole group, the Rat Pack. So different genres, but my top 3 got to be Chicago, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Tower of Power. I've seen them all a multitude of times, and each time I see them, it's like the first time. I mean, how many times can you hear Saturday in the Park, and get excited? You get excited when it starts. Crowd goes wild. So, yep.
Yep. No, every time I hear that song, I always, here we go. Yep. I'll crack open another beer. Okay. Getting away from the arts now. We've only got 5 more on this section here, Randy. Do you have a favorite food?
Steak.
Excellent.
Quality steak.
Quality. Very good. Do you have a favorite place to eat on the road?
Any buffet. Because usually when we're on the road, you're paying your own expenses. Okay. I remember the night we had to go from Atlanta TV way up to Michigan. We had a day to get there, and it's a day's drive. 4 of us jobbers in a little Ford Escort at the time. There was me, George South, Gary Royal, and the Italian Stallion. Well, we had to sleep over somewhere. So we got this Motel 6, which was really cheap at the time, took the mattress off of the box springs and flipped. 2 guys slept on the box springs, 2 guys on the mattress. So when you ate, you could eat 1 good meal a day. So we've always found a buffet filled up on it. Could be Golden Corral, could be Morrison's, whatever it was. Buffets, that's it. And I'll guarantee you, any guy that was on the road, especially the lower class guys like me, ate nothing but buffets.
Excellent. Do you have a favorite alcoholic beverage? And if you don't drink, Randy, just a favorite beverage in general?
Well, my favorite drink is lemonade and Fireball.
Oh, very nice.
What a
nice.
combo. And other than that, Fireball and Dr. Pepper.
Oh, very good.
You wouldn't think that would match, but I got turned on to that. Oh, it's good. But the lemonade, my wife and I went on a cruise. We're only about 45 minutes from the cruise ships here. So we can just take a weekend cruise, and you can get them next to nothing, $200 a piece. They got this pink lemonade. I don't know what brand, whatever else, but I always drank that. So we were, they had a trivia down in the big thing. It was Motown trivia. Well, that's another thing I'm into, really, music and trivia stuff, musical stuff. So we're rattling all this off, and what we're doing, I'm with my brother-in-law was there too, my wife and his wife. And I said, let's get a shot of Fireball. He says, Fireball, that's a sissy, that's a girl's drink. What?
No.
So as we had to help him back to the room afterwards. Anyways, so we're drinking shots. Okay. Didn't want no more shots, but I was getting kind of thirsty in that. So I got some of my favorite lemonade. I went down and got it. Just poured it in for the hell of it. What's the worst going to happen? I'm going to get sick in the morning anyway, you know? It was wonderful. So to this day, Fireball, not an imitation cinnamon whiskey. It's got to be Fireball and lemonade.
Excellent. I might have to try it with Dr. Pepper because Dr. Pepper is actually my favorite non-alcoholic beverage.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I'm telling you, you'd be surprised.
I can't wait. Second last one here, Randy. This is considered the naughtiest one of these questions. Favorite female body part. Randy Hogan sees a good-looking lady. Where will Randy Hogan's eyes go to first?
The thighs.
Ooh, a thigh man.
Thigh to the butt. Boobs are okay, but it's not my go-to thing. You know, I stay in the zone. Stay in the zone. The thighs up. You know, how many times have you seen girls with big boobs and these little stick legs?
Mm-hmm.
What a turn on, you know?
Yeah.
So no, I gotta have a little meat. I like them curvy, not fat, curvy.
Excellent.
You follow NXT?
Yes, of course. I think I know who you're going to talk about.
Lions.
Nikita Lyons, yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Now she's flexible too. Oh my God, talk about it. But that's it. The Nikita Lyons.
Wonderful, Randy.
And you look at poor Becky Lynch, you know, she's cute as a button little kid, but she's flat as I am. You know, she got no butt, no nothing.
Excellent, Randy. Excellent stuff. You know what? It reminded me of Nikita Koloff when he answered that question. He said he likes the shape of a woman. I thought that was quite classy. So I'm with you both on that one. And the last one here, Randy, I don't even know if you said one curse word on this show, but it's your favorite curse word.
Fuck.
Yeah. It's the number one answer for that question on this show.
Yeah. I unless somebody would ask me like you, I wouldn't swear, you know, because a lot of the PG, whatever, I'm a firm believer in that, you know. When you got guys like Tig Moxley walking all over, giving everybody, man, what is that? You got kids in the audience. You're trying to make new fans, you know. Mom and dad, hopefully some of them are teaching them right from wrong, you know. And here their idol in the ring is him and Ken Kingston and everybody giving everybody the finger, you know. What is that? What's this come to? What kind of sport? What kind of those things bother me. Okay, maybe I'm old school. I'm not a prude by any means, but there's just no place for that in sports.
I understand, Randy, but again, fantastic answer for the last question. And that brings us to the end here, Mr. Randy Hogan. What a joy it has been talking to you. My face hurts from laughter, from smiling. You've been
I don't want to go.
I've been just loving learning about your time in wrestling and hearing some of these great stories that you have. So again, here comes another really nice compliment. I live in Perth, Western Australia, which is the most isolated city in the world, so far away from a lot of places. You have a fan over here, so you reached all the way to the most isolated city in the world. So I just want to let you know that. And again,
wow. Wow. That's, again, tears me up. It does, you know. And again, I can't thank you enough for reaching out all the way around Australia. My God, you know, I'm just Randy Meal / Hogan, you know. I mean, who that far away would know me, think of me, and actually want to talk to me? I can't thank you enough. And anytime I can do anything for you, let me know.
No problem, Randy.
You get stuck for a guest sometime, just give me a day's notice.
Sounds good.
And we'll go to part 2.
Wonderful, Randy. Well, thank you again, and thank all of you out there for joining us for the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network, where randomania is running wild, brother. I'm
Brother.
Karlifornia. This is Randy Hogan, my new friend, and we will see you all down the road. Thank you.
Network, that's the way we play. Good God Almighty. Dope Network, that's the way we play. Get puppies. Dope Network, that's the way we play. Get.
The following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.